Kuni II Revenant Kingdom Day 1 Edition. So the Day 1 Edition gets a lot of, well, some freebie like always. And this one is Enhanced Pro, so one of these days, DualShock of course. Voices at least is English and Japanese. Subtitle of course English, but I guess it's so much of an original game, so you kind of get away with it. If it's an anime licensed game, I guess it's a little bit tricky. That's what according to Xseed. Whatever. But anyway, you got Best of 2017 Game Critic Award winner E3. We discover another world. The story for the Glare. Inspiring animated adventure. All action battle includes special sword set. And of course, if you notice what this game is, the art design is the same people who did Totoro, Ponyo, Grave of the Firefly. Studio Ghibli, which again, I don't think they exist anymore. I could be wrong. I know there's the latest one on Netflix now, another Studio Ghibli type animation. But again, I mean, I don't know what the history there is. A video about the history of Studio Ghibli, so I really need to do a research on that. I don't know why I haven't do it. So anyway, I'm gonna try this game, Kuni II Revenant Kingdom. Neato! Kuni II Revenant Kingdom is a sequel to the first game. However, most people call this a standalone sequel. So for people who don't know what that is, think of it as Final Fantasy games. This game, heck, even to some extent, some other games I can't think of right now. Heck, even just recently, the Suicide Squad. So technically, a game that is a sequel, but you don't have to know about the previous storylines, which is good. Dragon Quest also is the same boat. Yeah. So with that said, what do I think about Kuni II? So I'm gonna say the gameplay much better than the first game, because if you know the first game is, it's sort of a Pokemon-esque type game, time active battle per se, is that you play the main character and then you got the spirit psychic and you tell them what to do in a active time battle. So again, kind of like Final Fantasy IV, you gotta think. You don't just, okay, we're pausing, what do I do? No, it's not something like that. You gotta be fast about it. So they kind of fixed that in the second game. Instead, now you play as the main character and you just walk around, hack and slash. So it's sort of the Tales or the Star Ocean series. So you move around and hit the enemy, and then of course you got teammates. They are AI control. And the spirit part here is a bit different. What it is that if you have enough magic points, you can actually summon different spirit throughout the game. You kind of get some new ones there. So a little bit easier than the first one, because again, like I said, you don't have to like babysit your spirit psychic. It's basically you are the main character, so if you get hit, if you die, it's on you. Versus the first game is, if your spirit dies, well, I mean, the game's not over yet, but you're gonna have a hard time. So a bit different there. I think people didn't like the aspect of controlling a spirit while you're like moving around too, so they made it easy for this one. Graphic wise, well, it is a Studio Ghibli, so it's really beautiful there. And of course, it's on the PS4, so frame rate much better. Granted, the first game also had a remastered version, and you can see, same deal, they did up the frame rate. Story wise, is sort of generic, and to some extent, also sort of following the first game, like the basic premise, which is a bit of a spoiler here, is, let's just say, one of the characters is from the real world that warped to the fantasy world. It was the same thing with the first game with the main character. That particular character was in the real world and then went to a fantasy world. And another surprise here is that you don't go back and forth like the first game, so you're stuck in this fantasy world. So story-wise, that's what it is. And of course, generic is some bad guy took over the kingdom. Now you're trying to build your own kingdom. That's why it's called Revenant Kingdom, because you're trying to be the Revenant King, a benevolent king. and throughout the game you kind of build that base of yours. So a bit of Suikoden-ish there, but it's not that hard. Again, same deal. You have to have money to build stuff. I mean, kind of like no doubt there. Character-wise, again, they're not really sort of like memorable, but to some extent they're like, oh, you know, whatever. I mean, heck, one of the characters has the Totaku figure. Voice acting, I say to some extent it is it's sort of a Studio Ghibli thing, British accent. I know, granted, I don't know if it's partial dub versus the Japanese one, but again, heck, at least there's an option for English dub for like myself who prefer my Japanese game in English. So take it to what it is. I mean, that'll be a different story there. But for the voice acting, it's not great, but for what it is, it's okay. There. So overall, my impression of this game is that I'm gonna give it a 7 out of 10. Why did I give that score? Because one, like I said, good story, not great, good story. It's generic. Build my own kingdom. I'm gonna be the best king ever. It sort of followed the first game, like the premise part, like, oh, there's somebody from the real world that went to the fantasy world. But the gameplay, definitely much better, much easier to understand. The kingdom building, again, it's, well, you just have to have money grinding. And another one I did forget is there's also this mode called like group battle or tactical battle. Kind of a bit confusing, but it's not so hard. And throughout like the map field, there are going to be enemies like, oh, we challenge you in a army battle, and if you have enough people, you can beat them. And again, kind of sound like Suikoden. There is a bit of a mode where the more people you have in the castle, the bigger the army, the better it is. Same goes with this one. So yeah, I probably copied some from Suikoden games, which is not a bad thing. Again, but it's like, oh, if you knew it once, you know what it is. Downside is that the game is not really that inspiring. It's beautiful, but it won't let a lot of people in for what it is. Unless you're a fan of Studio Ghibli and JRPG, you're probably going to give it a chance. But for the general consumer, they're like, oh, I played this, it's fun, I get it. But they're probably not going to get into it. They're not going to stick with the game to some extent. Because the story, like I said, is not really that intriguing. It's just, gotta build a kingdom. I'm trying to be a benevolent king. Gotta prove myself. Beat the bad guy. The end. Sort of type of thing there. So yeah, that's my impression. It's a 7 out of 10. So with that, I'll see you guys later.